This meeting is to celebrate George Batchelor's centenary. George was born in 1920, and we, of course, were going to hold this meeting a year ago in Cambridge in person. And for obvious reasons, that's not been possible. And what we decided was to reduce the meeting down to a selection of keynote speakers. And of course, this is unfortunate in the sense that we would have had many more contributions over the 3-day meeting and an opportunity to meet in person. But we felt that a shorter meeting concentrated around the keynote speakers was much more appropriate. I think it's very difficult to maintain interest on Zoom for long periods during over 3 days. So I need to try and advance my slides somehow. Here we go. So just to say thank you to some people before we begin. We had a scientific committee consisting of Keith Moffat, who's acted as the chair, Babette Guzeli, Beverley McKeon, Tim Pedley, and Chikin Zha. And at the time of the meeting, this committee organized invitations to the keynote speakers, and also we selected a number of early career researchers to give presentations at the meeting. And I'll discuss at the end how we're going to take that forward after this meeting. But anyway, I'd like to thank all of you for your contributions in the original planning of this meeting, and also for helping over the course of the last year or so when we've been trying to work out how to take this further forward. We also had a local committee in Dant consisting of Colm, Caulfield, Stephen Cowley, Jerome Neufeld, Jamie Partridge, and Tim Pedley. And they did a lot of work in the early days planning for the meeting in person, and of course then undoing all the damage that was required as a result of having to cancel it and change it to this online context. But there are pros and cons of this. Obviously, one of the pros is that we're able to have a wide international audience and a much bigger participation than would have been possible had we held it in Cambridge. This symposium has wide support. In particular, it is an IUTAM symposium. So we thank IUTAM for their support of this, and also Euromec. And George was very heavily involved in Euromec, and we'll hear a talk from Patrick Huer tomorrow about his involvement with Euromec. And of course, Cambridge University Press, who provide the publication services for the Journal of Fluid Mechanics, which George established in 1956. One of his major achievements. He was responsible for the establishment of what was then the European Mechanics Society, along with the Journal of Fluid Mechanics. And it's a great testimony to his legacy that these institutions thrive today. George was also a fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge, and we're very pleased to have sponsorship from Trinity in the production of a booklet that Keith Moffat has overseen and sent out to the people who initially registered for the meeting. I'd also like to thank the Leeds Institute of Fluid Mechanics, who are hosting this Zoom webinar, and in particular to Claire Savvy and Steve Tobias, who have been very helpful in setting all this up and hopefully making sure that it all runs smoothly through the course of this next 3 days. As I said, we did invite a range of early career researchers, Unfortunately, because of the abbreviated form of the current meeting, they are unable to speak at this venue. And so what we have decided in collaboration with Cambridge University Press, DAMT, and the Leeds Institute for Fluid Dynamics, that the Friday seminar series that has been running remotely on Fridays at 4 p.m. over the last year or so will continue in the Easter term, starting on April the 30th. And this series will be labeled the Batchelor webinar series and will feature talks by the early career researchers who were initially intended to speak at this symposium. So each of these seminars will be, there'll be 2 speakers each week for the 8 weeks of this series. And further information about their titles and the order of this will come out later through email. So I hope you'll all continue to celebrate this event by attending these seminars as we go through the term. And finally, just to say what the program is today. So over the next 3 days, we have on each day lectures from the 3 Batchelor Prize winners in reverse order, chronologically: Grae, Goldstein, Detlef Loser, and Howard Stone. And we also have invited lectures from Rama Govindarajan, Patrick Ware, Berenjere Dubrel, Xiaoxing Zheng, and Keith Moffat will give a talk at the end of the meeting discussing the life and work of George. So I think it's a very interesting program, and I look forward to hearing these talks, as I'm sure we all do, over the next 3 days. I'm now going to hand over to Colm Caulfield, who's going to make a welcome on behalf of the department.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. And thank you to all the people, well, particularly to Paul for his wonderful efforts to get this program to work. As he says, my name's Colm Caulfield, and at the moment I'm the head of department of DAMT. And so I'm formally and virtually welcoming you to DAMT, one of the great monuments of George Batchelor. And it is bittersweet. Of course, we would love to be able to welcome you to Cambridge to come and hear all the variety of talks we had planned with both these keynotes and also that very exciting list of work by early career researchers. And Cambridge in the springtime can be quite beautiful, and we'll be able to go and see the beautiful and the wonderful laboratory downstairs in the CMS where we could see fluids in action. But of course, we live in changed times, and it is also wonderful that we have twice the number of people, over twice the number of people we could possibly have managed to accommodate in Cambridge. I remember clearly a conversation of the local committee with the local fire officer discussing just how many people we could squeeze into our lecture hall, and we were quite concerned that that was going to be far fewer than would want to participate. So it is great that we're able to hold these talks in this fashion. And it's great, of course, a major part of George Batchelor's legacy, as will be talked about by Patrick Ware and others, was his great internationalism, to want to encourage people from all over the world to collaborate and to work together on the fascinating problems of fluid dynamics. So it's wonderful to be able to have a worldwide audience for this set of talks. I'm really looking forward to them, and I hope in time that all of you will be able to come and visit us in Cambridge and see the great fluid mechanics that's going on in the CMS in DAMT as founded by George Batchelor. So welcome and enjoy the next 3 days. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Colm. As Colm just said, of course, that DAMT is one of the major legacies of George Batchelor. He founded the department and was the initial head of department for around 25 years. and set the tone, I think, of much of the fluid mechanics research that's not just carried out in DAMP, but in many parts of the world. His other legacy that I've already referred to, of course, is the Journal of Fluid Mechanics. And we're going to hear first of all from Grae Worcester, who's the editor of JFM, say a few words. So over to you, Grae.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome to everyone on this call. I realize there are people here from all over the world, so I can say good morning, good day, and good night. I think it will be relevant to somebody on this call. Of course, we're here today and for the next couple of days to celebrate the centenary of George Batchelor. And one of George's great legacies to the world was the founding of the Journal of Fluid Mechanics in 1956. Volume 1, Issue 1, published in May of 1956, contained just 8 papers, and in those early years there were 6 issues per year. Today there are 24 volumes per year with 30 to 40 papers in each volume. And I recall, probably in the mid-90s, sitting next to George at lunch one day, who remarked that it would be wonderful to see JFM reach volume 500. And he asked me if I thought that number would ever be reached. Well, the special volume that accompanies this celebration is volume 914, not too far off 1,000, so twice George's hope. George had the vision to see that fluid mechanics held a special place at the intersection and encompassing broad areas of engineering, physics, and mathematics. He also understood the symbiosis of theory, experiment, and application. And so while the journal was focused on fluid mechanics, it defied too narrow a characterization as an applied maths journal on the one hand, or a physics journal on the other. Today, the importance of fluid mechanics is understood in almost every branch of science and technology, spanning the nanoscale to the galactic. And whereas in the early years, papers tended to focus on pure hydrodynamic interactions, today the subject includes interactions with deformable structures, with chemistry, with biology, and many other forces of nature. The bringing together of fluid mechanics into one volume had the advantage of showing how fluid mechanical principles learned in one branch of science could find application in another. In this sense, JFM has tended to focus on fundamental or generalizable aspects. In the industrial language of research, development, and production, JFM perhaps sits more squarely in the research mold. And there are many specialized journals these days in oceanography and microfluidics, for example, that might be thought of as at the production end of things in this crude analogy. There seemed to be space in the sphere of development, taking fundamental fluid mechanical ideas and showing how, in principle, these could be applied. And it was into this space that the new journal Flow was conceived as a sister journal to JFM. And I'm pleased that its editor-in-chief, Juan Santiago, will say a few words about Flow in just a moment. George was correct in his vision that fluid mechanics deserves its own space in the scientific universe, and many other fluid mechanical journals have come into being since the foundation of JFM. Foremost of these was Physics of Fluids, whose mantle is now worn by Physical Review Fluids, and it's a pleasure and an honor to have the new editors-in-chief of PR Fluids, Beverley McKeon and Eric Lauger, with us today. And Beverley will say a few words in just a moment. So just in closing, let me remind you, if you didn't know already, that the entire volume associated with this celebration has been published open access. And I hope that you'll enjoy all the contributions to that volume that would have been featured with live presentations at this event as it was originally planned. But you can see all the research, exciting research there.
My name is Juan Santiago. I'm currently here at Stanford. I'm honored to talk to you and tell you about a new journal today, which Grae just mentioned. It's a new Cambridge University Press journal called Flow. So in this graphic, what we're trying to do is show the breadth of Flow. Flow is an open access journal. It's also a translational journal that seeks to highlight and promote the many applications of fluid mechanics. And then here are just a few examples of such applications. On the left-hand side are technologies or devices. On the right-hand side is an attempt to show the many insights into nature that fluid mechanics provides and can provide. So the idea behind our new journal Flow is that there are many excellent journals that cover the fundamentals of fluid mechanics, and other journals, as Grae said, cover applications like aerospace, microfluidics, or the climate. But we think there's a niche for a journal that very broadly covers all applications of fluid mechanics. Very importantly, and we're very proud of this, Flow is a companion journal. It's a sister journal to the Journal of Fluid Mechanics. This, in addition to being a source of pride for us, this gives us access to a large database of quality reviewers. And this relationship with JFM also means it's very fitting, and it's our honor to introduce this at this celebration of George Batchelor, who of course very famously founded JFM in 1956. So with that, I'll just show one more slide. This slide, we are summarizing some of the information, some of our associate editors, as well as our advisory board, both of which we're very proud of. And I'll end my comments with a few words on why you might consider submitting to Flow, submitting your next work to Flow. So first of all, the open access format is a shorter format, and the very broad scope are all designed to try to reach the widest possible audience with no barriers to access, right? The second one is we benefit from this excellent reputation with JFM, and this provides us access to high quality fluid mechanics reviews. I think many of us have had this experience where we have a very applied paper and we're torn between submitting it to a area of application where it may not receive the quality fluid mechanics review. Thirdly, we aim to disseminate new advances in methods or experimental tools across all fields. And lastly, Flow offers quality and very quick turnaround reviews, including initial rapid feedback after submission. And we're already accepting papers, manuscripts, and we've already accepted papers through the review. The first papers come out in April.
Thank you very much, Juan. And now it's a pleasure to invite Beverley McKeon to say a few words about PR fluids as well. So Beverley.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone. I'm Beverley McKeon from Caltech. I'm delighted to have had the opportunity to participate in the organizing committee for this great event. So thank you to Paul and the committee. I'm also very pleased to speak wearing the different hats, so namely as one of the lead editors of Physical Review Fluids, the other being Eric Lauger of DAMT, another of the great institutions founded by George Batchelor, as we've heard. As a newly minted lead editor, I have to say that Batchelor's 40 years of editorship of the JFM present a somewhat daunting proposition. PhysRev Fluids is an APS journal with a special connection to the Division of Fluid Dynamics. It inhabits some of the same landscape in publishing as JFM, providing a different option in publishing while supporting our own flavor of interdisciplinary fluid mechanics research, filling some of the same challenges and in some case, perhaps even providing some friendly competition. We encourage you to check out the journal if you haven't already. But the primary purpose of speaking is to say that I'm delighted to offer our congratulations on behalf of Physical Review Fluids to the Journal of Fluid Mechanics at this event to mark what would have been a milestone birthday for George Batchelor, plus 1 year, and on an excellent accompanying special volume. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.